what does that decision-making process look like?
Everything that one wants to do has to be based on some sort of value. Is this getting me closer towards serving the Imam of my time? If you take a step towards preparing some child, 7 generations later, that one child could be in the service of the Imam of our time, that effort is worth it.
How do you find the balance? Our faith is very demanding.
I was hoping I could ask you.
There's a lot of passion. Within our youth generation, how do they find that motivation to do it?
$1 million question. There are some guidelines I think that would help. How can I do something that is going to be transcendent based on what I already know?
We have one spot left on the Atlanta 12ers team, and we only have 2 players to choose from. Tell me one ayah or hadith. Tell me your favorite Noah Khan. All of your favorite alims and Molanas are in town. Whose majlis can you not miss? Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for tuning in again to Up Close and Shia podcast. I have a very special guest with me today. Of course, all my guests are special, but this one has an elevated position. Today, I have my brother Mehdi Shirazi. Mehdi is a staple in the Atlanta Shia community and really just the Shia community at large. Brother Mehdi, assalamu alaikum, and thank you for accepting my invite.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. This is going to be a fun episode, Mehdi. So let's just start with a quick bio. So just tell me where you were born and how long have you been in Atlanta?
I was born in Abu Dhabi, UAE.
Abu Dhabi.
Long time ago. And I've been in Atlanta since 2001.
2001. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know, and obviously Mehdi and I grew up together. So like I said, this is a special friend to me, a special brother to me, and a special episode to me. So I know you are quite well traveled. So let me ask you this right off the bat. We're just starting off firing. What ethnicity do you associate yourself to?
I'm Pakistani, Indo-Paki, if you want to be
really okay. So tell me about and tell us about your educational background and what led you to what you're doing currently today professionally.
Sure. So I grew up in the Atlanta area. We went to high school together. That's a less known fact. But
yes.
After high school, went off to college, Georgia State University. I had aspirations to go to law school.
Okay.
I did an undergrad in political science, studied for the LSAT, but decided I wanted to do something else. Ended up working basically started off my career in retail operations as a trainee for management. And then went back to get my MBA at Georgia State University.
At Lowe's, if I remember.
Coles.
Yes.
Same 4-letter words.
Okay.
Or similar 4-letter words. So went back for my MBA and then used that to kind of pivot into technology, software development, moved into doing more product management. Last 9 years of my career has been primarily in product strategy within technology.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you did the MBA
at Georgia State.
At Georgia State. Okay.
Right.
Mehdi is quite the mover and shaker in the Atlanta community. He is a trailblazer. He has done a lot for the Atlanta community here at large. In the name of brotherhood, he is currently running a center, Ilm Center here of Atlanta. So related to that, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of confidence to do some of these initiatives that you've been involved in. So let's start with this. Let's start with the why. Why start a center? What was your purpose behind this mission?
So the reality of the matter is I never knew I would be in any kind of position to start a center or, I guess whatever is commonly perceived as, community organization. Sometimes things do snowball. You address whatever needs you see in front of you and try to fulfill that need. You don't necessarily think of what the outcome and fruit of that's going to be long term. And naturally so, when these kind of challenges of people desiring a little bit more of a educational awareness-based focus when it came to their faith, we try to address that with doing some kind of programming or events that allowed people to be a little bit more awareness focused, as opposed to doing things that are purely based off of tradition or ritual or anything of that nature. So you address that need, and what it does is you realize that needs essentially make up groups of people. Those groups of people make up a subset of the community, and those communities have specific needs. So accordingly, it naturally materialized from one thing to led to another, to the point where it made sense to have a community space where people who have this kind of interest and focus can thrive and grow and come together.
that again, going back to what I was saying earlier, that confidence, right? And I guess navigating that decision making progress, a process, and as you're going through that, what are those steps that go through your brain? Because again, you're involved in a lot of initiatives, and we're going to get into the other initiatives that Brother Mehdi is also involved in. But what does that decision making process look like for you? How do you evaluate, if there's an initiative or project in front of you?
Everything that one wants to do has to be based on some sort of value or another, right? It may sound very aspirational to say this, and a lot of people might, or to some it may sound very aspirational, to some it may sound a little bit more cliche. But essentially, what you have to do is think from the vantage point of what specific thing, like what is the thing that I'm doing helping me in getting towards that goal. If a lot of people take the approach of, is this getting me closer towards serving the Imam of my time? That is a very aspirational thing. A lot of times, it's very much some people would see it as a very far-fetched thing.
Sure.
Even though it says
The number
they
one
see it as
form of
far,
ibadah.
yeah, they see it as far, but we see it as near. If we have that goal set in mind, it allows us to take steps that said, you know what, this might be one of those small steps that we take in that direction. I have, not to get too long-winded on this, but
Please.
There's one thing that somebody had mentioned to me that said something along the lines of, if you take a step towards preparing some child 7 generations later, that one child could be in the service of the Imam of our time, that effort is worth it. So when you talk about confidence, I don't have confidence in my ability to do something. I just know it's something in that direction. And if you take that step, then maybe the next step will become even clearer. So you don't have to really think about creating that entire long-term path. You just have to do what your taklif is in that given situation or place.
Jazakallah. So that's amazing words of wisdom. And Mehdi and I connect a lot. Love him, respect him. He's my younger brother, but I look up to Mehdi as well. And it's because of these types of comments, for sure.
I talk a good game. Let's just say that.
Okay. So maybe along those lines, right, we're talking about role models and guidance and looking up to people. Who do you look up to for guidance and support?
Well, I can't name names. So what I
got your father, of course.
Yeah. So I think there is inspiration. Really, if there's one person in my life that I could say who has inspired me and continues to inspire me, was my grandfather, marhum.
Yes.
He was somebody.
Man.
He, in all aspects of his life, I've seen how he grew in every aspect of his life. He was a businessman. He was a shoulder for many people. He was supportive to all the people that kind of interacted with him in life. He was a very trusting person. He was he did a lot of service in the name of spreading Islam in India and Pakistan and Parachinar and many different places. There's Imam Bargah's Masajid. Even without, there's many things we learned even after he passed that he had contributed to and did things to, and not just financially, but just always made sure that if there was an avenue through which Islam could be spread, that's my grandfather's probably the biggest inspiration. But one thing I would emphasize is there's, you find those role models, but at the end of the day, in every single aspect of life, you'll find somebody who is a role model in some shape or form. And as you aspire to that person and aspire to that person within that sphere of life, you will learn that you will grow. And not only that, so you'll find the next person to which you can aspire to.
Exactly.
So a lot of people will say something along the lines of I used to look at, I'll use an example of sports athletics. A lot of people can relate to that. As a kid, you see one player on one particular team, you're like, oh, that guy's amazing. But as you grow and learn more about the sport, you learn more about the athlete themselves, you'll realize, hey, there might be somebody else who excels and exceeds that person even more. And then you grow and ignore that first person, but you actually build on and look up to the next person. And your understanding of that specific discipline grows as that role model expands.
And just commenting on that, on your previous comment when I asked you about confidence, and your response to that was, it's not necessarily confidence, but rather there are some immediate things and how you can achieve those. And the decisions just become clear as you keep progressing. So similarly, as you uncover maybe someone that you look up to, a role model, a sports example, you may become more and more defined and more clear to go deeper. So subhanAllah.
Nice.
So it's amazing how all that interconnects with you. So I'm going to pivot here for just a little bit. You mentioned something about sports. So I know this is one of the projects that Mehdi is involved in, but so share with us the project you know I'm talking about, as well as other initiatives that you are involved in, for example, Isra Academy.
Happy to speak about them. So let me talk about the first one you were talking about. Atlanta 12ers League. A lot of people look at me and they talk to me and they very quickly come to the realization I know nothing about basketball or any sport for that matter. I'm not into sports as much. I will enjoy them occasionally and seasonally based on major events that are happening. But I am involved with Atlanta 12ers League, and one of the impetus for being involved in supporting an initiative like that is one thing has become very clear to me, that athleticism competition allows and breeds brotherhood, connection, building bridges. There is a degree of sportsmanship that is required for us to overcome a lot of our life's challenges.
Sure.
So that's one of the initiatives. Working with you and a few other folks in the Atlanta area, I've seen that kind of project showing promise. So somebody would ask me, why would you even do something like this? You don't even play this sport. And the answer I would tell them is, I have this specific set of skills that allows me to organize and do logistics and stuff like that. And if I can even give that part of it, a lot of times people think that some things are out of our wheelhouse, but no, there are certain skills you may have that may be within your wheelhouse. You can put it in the service of some good project, community or otherwise. So it's just that's one of the reasons why I felt like that's a good avenue for me to kind of put some of my skills forward. Of course, I have a lot to learn, not just about the sport, but even how do you even run a sports league.
Sure,
we're learning as we kind of
of course.
As far as you mentioned Isra Academy, so I personally, again, same set of skills. I know nothing about education. I don't know what childhood education looks like. I don't know what Islamic education looks like. All I can say is, if there is means and resources that are at your disposal, and you connect with people who have a similar vision or are moving towards that direction, if I can be of any help to enable and move that in that direction, then why not? I guess that kind of answers the question on both of those projects.
Sure. Any other initiatives you have up your sleeve? Do you want to give us a preview too?
So call this a character flaw.
Okay.
Is if somebody approaches me, I have a very hard time saying no.
Okay.
So hopefully nobody gets any ideas after listening to this if they want to start a project with me. Frankly, I need to focus on
the backlog is already.
Yes. I'm sure you can relate. Yeah, I think essentially it's just if there is something good and people need help, honestly, I benefit more from helping than them needing to ask me to provide any kind of support. So if it's good, if it helps the community, why not?
Sure, absolutely. So there's a lot going on in your life. We talked about some of these things, but there's more things, right? I mean, you're obviously have a full-time job, you're running a center, you've got these other initiatives and projects that you're involved in, you're a son, you're a husband, you've got a lot of things going on. How do you find the balance? And in the context of this, our faith is very demanding. We have programs throughout the year, all the shahadats, the viladats, programs throughout the year that demand essentially our time. How do you find the time to maintain that balance to all of these things that you are responsible for? And of course, without deen, none of this really exists, right? So how do you find that balance?
I was hoping I could ask you because I still haven't found that balance, to be honest. So there are certain things that do help you navigate it. I'm frankly honest. It's very hard for me to find that balance. I do find myself constantly jumping from one thing to another. What does help is very quickly you realize you do have to prioritize. There's always going to be a trade-off. If you don't do one thing, it will impact some other aspect of your life. As far as faith playing a role, it was the same thing I alluded to earlier. If you know that this somehow contributes towards serving the Imam of your time, then you'll do it. And that is an inspiration to continue doing it. There is a secondary thing that I think a lot of times when it comes to faith, community, religion, we tend to take a little bit of a more mediocre or approach of mediocrity towards it. The way I operate when it comes to those things is if we can't do an excellent job at it, then don't do injustice to your deen. So that really does help. Another thing I would say is if I cannot find that balance is not to say that I I necessarily do this all the time, but I'm reminded a lot by somebody very close to me that honestly, like, just ask God to help you through this process. So ask God, like, if you're struggling when it comes to balancing this aspect of your life or health, or even how you might be struggling in your workplace, just in general, like, you cannot find wellness within yourself, then just ask God. You really can.
Dua, right?
Dua can change everything.
Yeah.
I wish I'd do more of it, just to kind of, I think that would definitely help with my lack of effectiveness.
Oh, you have plenty of effectiveness.
Yeah.
So just sticking along those same lines, right? And you've kind of answered it kind of throughout all of these questions, but we're talking about balance. How does faith actually serve as inspiration, right? How do you harness the energy that you get from the faith to actually do all of these things that you're involved in, and keep going? So how does faith motivate you?
It's back to the same thing. I think when you say the Imam of our time needs people to do work, that reminds me that anytime I'm going to do something, like, is it serving the Imam? Is it serving God as an extension of that? I would use those kind of reminders and those questions and pose those questions to myself to kind of keep moving forward. There's a lot that I think a person will come across will make no sense why we're doing what we're doing. So you have to ask that question. And I really do think, like, becoming self-aware of what you're doing and how you're doing it can go a long way.
Jazakallah. Okay. So last question to close off the first segment, and really just advice, for our listeners, our audience, and really for the next generation. So, we've been around our Atlanta community, right? And we've seen the youth grow up. Now they're, mid, late teens. And now we see the next generation. Obviously, I've got young ones now as well. But within our youth generation, I already see it. I'm sure obviously you see it. And like a lot of our community sees it, there's a lot of passion to do something positive, and a lot of good ideas and ideation that happens. But sometimes, and again, we talked about that confidence and stuff, but if you were to maybe kind of summarize everything into a one or two liner, what inspiration, what lines of motivation would you give to the next generation that have a passion to do something, but are timid, scared, shy, embarrassed? How do they step up? And again, how do they find that motivation to do it?
$1 million question. I don't know if I have the answer, but there are some guidelines I think that would help.
Okay.
A lot of times we feel like we are the own obstacles in the path we want to take. And one of the ways we create those obstacles for ourselves is by having a mentality that is limiting to what our potential is. If we limit ourselves to our tribal affiliation, if we limit ourselves to our status quo, I think that can be we start thinking within the mind frame or the mindset of within that box, it really does limit you. You really do have to think about, what is the one thing in my life? How can I do something that is going to be transcendent based on what I already know? If I know that if I'm only exposed to doing X action, how do I do X plus one? Like, what do I do one thing that transcends beyond what I've already been known to? So the moment you start thinking along those lines, remove those limitations, I think that passion can multiply. That will be a realization of potential that you have.
Oh, that's amazing. That's going to wrap it up for our first segment. I hope there was plenty of words of wisdom for everyone to take away from there. But we're not done with Mehdi. We're going to go to the exciting rapid fire segment of the show now, where I'm going to ask Mehdi yourself a few questions. He has not been prepped for this, and the expectation is that the first thing that comes to your mind, obviously, is what you're going to respond with. It's meant to be rapid and candid, and I've got some pretty good questions teed up for you here. Yeah. All right. So you ready for the first one?
Let's do it.
I think so. Okay, good. Good answer. You obviously have the experience with obviously running a center. You have good network amongst the alims and the hujjats, throughout really the world, but obviously here in the US. All of your favorite alims and mulanas are in town. Whose majlis can you not miss?
There is a particular scholar who I don't get a chance to see or hear him much more. It's Maulana Muhammad Askari from India.
Okay.
Yeah.
From
India.
From India. Okay. And like currently residing in India, or originally from India?
Originally from India.
Okay, got it. So sticking along the same lines, tell me your favorite Noha Khan.
It changes every decade.
Every decade.
Every decade.
Okay. So we're in 2025 now.
So 2025, Hussein Khairuddin.
Hussein?
Khairuddin.
Khairuddin. Okay.
Yes.
And this is apologies, my ignorance.
He's a Lebanese reciter.
Lebanese reciter.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Wasn't expecting that one, but okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. This is a fun one. We have one spot left on the Atlanta 12ers team, and we only have 2 players to choose from. And those 2 players are, and you have to make that decision for the final squad. The 2 players are Maulana Sayyid Hassan or Muhammad Sajjad.
Muhammad Sajjad.
Wow, that was fast. Sorry, Sayyid Hassan. Muhammad Sajjad, there you go.
You understand why I said that.
Sure. Blood is thicker than water. Okay, you're an Atlanta veteran. You have family visiting or friend visiting. What one restaurant are you taking them to?
Dantana's.
Dantana's, yes. Okay,
Yes.
That's been there for you,
there,
and
yes.
it's still up there.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I mean, honestly, if you love somebody, you're gonna treat them to a nice steak.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Good answer there too, as well. Okay. Here's the last one, and here's one that to make your mind really think here, but probably not. But nonetheless, tell me one ayah or hadith that really sticks with you, that resonates with you, with your personal life. Again, as I always state in all the episodes, any ayah, any hadith, of course, they're all valuable to us. But what's one that's personally stuck with you? You can paraphrase.
One who knows himself knows his Lord.
Jazakallah, which lines up with everything that you actually mentioned throughout the conversation.
I wish I could say that it lines up with everything. It's always a struggle. Life is a struggle.
Sure, no, of course. No, but you're trying your best to live that. And again, like we were mentioning, the greatest form of ibadah is the intizar, right? And preparing yourself. So, Brother Mehdi, thank you so much for joining our episode today. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bihaqq al-bayt, keep showering the blessings upon you. Our collaboration will not stop. We have plenty of next stops coming up. Inshallah, we'll continue our conversations. And if there's, of course, any questions for Mehdi, you can reach out to him directly. Send us a DM on Up Close and Shia podcast. Inshallah, we'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum and Khudafis.